Jason, would you?
Father, thank you again for this day. Thank you again for the opportunity to come together to learn more about you, worship and praise you, Lord. Thank you for the time spent together as friends and family. Lord, we ask that you bless this time amongst us. We know you will. We ask that you be with the sick, heal them, be your will. Be with those overseas, defending our country, and our freedoms. Bring them safely home. Forgive us when we fail you, O Lord. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. We're in Job 21. So far decided to add his opinion to Bildad. And basically, if you go back and read the first one, he says basically the same thing, but only in a harsher tone, a more firm tone. He just repeats himself. And he's ignored Job's answer. And their whole thesis to this thing is God brings the rich down, he brought you down, so he brings the rich down because of their sin, he brought you down, so it must be because of sin. Okay? And Job, at this point, up to this point, has been pretty polite. He hadn't answered that. And we've answered it a couple times. I mean, the rich are doing just fine. Judgment is not of this life, judgment is of the next life. And that's how eternity opens for us. We stand before God. He opens the books, and we are assigned our place for eternity. Okay, Job's had enough. Job says, I'm really tired of this philosophy of yours. And we're going to get into that. So somebody read 1, 2, and 3.
Then Job replied, listen carefully to my words. Let this be the consolation you give me. Bear with me while I speak, and after I have spoken, mock on.
Okay. Any sarcasm in this?
Need a sign.
Okay. It says, listen carefully and let that action be a consolation to me. He said, just be quiet for a minute and listen. Anybody watch any of the presidential debates? Interrupting each other, jumping on each other, interrupting the monitor interrupting them. And Josh is saying, just be quiet and listen. Is it possible to talk and hear at the same time?
Not very good.
Yeah, and whatever you hear is going to be distorted, even if you hear someone, isn't it? When your mouth opens, your ears shut.
That's what I tell my students.
When your mouth's open, your ears are shut. Pretty much. You may hear the noise in the background, but you're not picking up much. You know, they talk about people playing chess 10 moves ahead and whatever, multitasking with your brain. What is the brain capable of doing at any one point in time? Can you do 3 things at once in your brain? Can you do 4 things at once? Can you do, if you got a really good brain, can you do 9 things at once? I mean, what is the possibility? This is from Purdue University, Department of Psychology.
Really just one thing at a time.
One thing at a time. Your brain will only do one thing at a time. So if you're talking, you can't be listening, comprehending, and evaluating what you're hearing. You can't be doing it. If you're listening, you won't be talking.
Can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Say what?
Can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah, well, that's physical, not mental. Yeah, about the same thing. Yeah, about the same. Okay, so you got this one thing going on, and it's either you or him, and your brain's not going to be able to do both at the same time. And if it does, it's going to be twisted. You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you're not going to get a whole picture. But Job says, listen carefully. There's an old saying, listening is a better part of communication. You ever heard that? Listening is a better part of communication. It is. It is. And bear with me while I speak. Listen carefully. Bear with me while I speak. And what does he consider to be the possibility of this being successful? And after I have spoken,
I'm gone.
I'm gone. So does he think does he think there's gonna be a chance in the world these guys are gonna listen, evaluate, and agree with him? No. But he's gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cycles of this now, and he's had enough. He tests their psychological premise. He says, let's test what you've been saying to me for 5 rounds. And that's where that starts. Somebody read 4 through 10.
Is my complaint directed to man? Why should I not be impatient? Look at me and be astonished. Clap your hand over your mouth. When I think about this, I am terrified. Trembling seizes my body. Why do the wicked live on, growing old and increasing in power? They see their children established around them, their offspring before their eyes. Their homes are safe and free from fear. The rod of God is not upon them. Their bulls never fail to breed. Their cows calve and do not miscarry.
All right. He said, okay, you gave me your opinion about the rich and their judgment and how their lives go. Now, look around you and see if that opinion is correct. Basically, it is a crude form, in Job's day, the crude form of the scientific theory. What's a scientific theory say? Develop a premise, set up a situation, observe the results, and see if your premise is true. Okay? So he said, your premise is the rich are going to die in disgrace, they're going to die defeated, everything's going to be taken away from them, and their lives are going to end up in a shambles. Now let's look around us and see if that's true. And then he makes a few statements here. He said, their children are established around them, their offspring before their eyes. Their bulls never fail to breed, the calves calve and do not miscarry. Where do you see all this happening at? Why are you dumping this load on me and expecting me to carry it for you? It's not true. None of this is true. Just look around you. It's not true. And he's right. I mean, we've talked about what they've said. Was that true? You know, mentally, a lot of times the rich will suffer because they're worried about their money, or they're worried about their cars, or they're worried that somebody's going to sneak up on them and take something they've got, or they're worried that if they let me do them a favor, I'm going to come back and want a favor from them. So the rich they want to pay for everything, don't they? I told you about the leaves I picked up one day. Had to give me $50. Could not let me carry the leaves home because I might come back and say, hey, remember those leaves I hauled off? I need a favor from you, and I need a loan at a good interest rate. Because these guys were all bankers and everything. Would not let me haul their leaves off free, paid me $50. So I just hauled off all the leaves they were happy to give me and took home $300-400 doing it. And I would have been tickled to death to have had them for free. But the rich won't be obligated to me because they don't want me to come back and want me to get even. So mentally sometimes they suffer and sometimes they don't sleep well. But if you look at materially what they have, they're doing just fine. Everything's going well. 11 through 16.
They send forth their children as a flock. Their little ones dance about. They sing to the music of tambourine and harp. They make merry to the sound of the flute. They spend their years in prosperity and go down to the grave in peace. Yet they say to God, leave us alone. We have no desire to know your ways. 14 or 15?
16.
16. Who is the Almighty that we might serve him? What would we gain by praying to him? but their prosperity is not in their own hands. So I stand aloof from the counsel of the wicked.
Okay. What is the big danger of prosperity?
Losing it, losing it, losing it.
Losing it? Sometimes that's the blessing.
You won't be thankful for it.
What?
You won't be appreciative or thankful for what you have if you have too much.
Does it become our God? Don't we start serving it? Don't we start counting our pennies a little closer? There's an old saying, if you watch your pennies, you don't have to worry about your dollars. And the tightest people I've ever known in my life was the richest people. You take some poor guy in worn out tennis shoes and holes in his knees, and he throws pennies in that little tray at the cash register when the woman gives them back to him. If you watch the rich guys, they sneak them out. I've seen them do it more than once. The money begins to control us, and the money becomes our God. We start living for the money and not for the God. And then what happens? One of the beginning downfalls of a nation is its prosperity. We begin to get rich, then we begin to get fat, then we begin to get lazy, then we begin to get immoral, and the next thing you know, you go back in the 1800s, everybody worked. There wasn't a welfare program. And basically nobody starved to death, except the drunk that used up all his money to be an alcoholic. No, there wasn't anybody living on the streets. And then we became more and more prosperous, and we became more and more affluent, and had more and more stuff. And the next thing you know, the nation's falling apart. And our prosperity sneaks up on it and carries us away. What is the source of the prosperity anyway? What Job said. But their prosperity is not in their own hands. So I stand aloof from the counsel of the wicked. That all these rich people that have all this money, that money has begun to take them over, that money has begun to control their life, but the prosperity didn't come from them anyway. If my crops do well, was it because of my expertise or because God sent the rain? Is there anything I can do to bring the rain on the crop? I can haul horse manure, I can have the best soil in the world, I can compost, but if God doesn't send that rain, that piece of garden is gonna be bare. Look right there. That was cut this morning out of my garden. I have a whole row of those. And it was all happened when the rain came after the dry summer. And I've never raised better. But those plants just sat there and they sat there and they sat there and they sat there, and they didn't put on another leaf until those rains happened, what, 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago now? And between that and no rain, in 3 or 4 weeks with rain, that was the result, and I got 25 more just like it. So, my great expertise, my ability to start the seed, my wonderful soil, I wasn't going to have a salad until the rains came. And do we have any control over the weather whatsoever? We like to think we do. How we can go up and salt the clouds, right? No. Not gonna work. They've shot artillery shells up there. They've done all kinds of things, and it just doesn't work. Now, I water them. You can put 10 inches of well water or spring water on a garden, and it won't equal a ½ inch of rain. It'll sit there and it'll live, it'll survive, but it won't produce One rain with all the explanations of why it works, one rain will do more than 10 inches of watering in a heartbeat. Those plants just turned on and produced the minute God's rain touched the soil. And that's what Job said. He said, "Look, prosperity doesn't come from our own hands. Our prosperity comes from God." He said, "So I stand aloof from the counsel of the wicked." Where's that arrow pointed? All this garbage you've been dumping on me, I'm just going to stand aside and watch it pile up. I'm not going to receive it. Satan will send us a whole bunch of people to try and give us bad counsel. And the Holy Spirit will correct that. It will listen. Remember in the beginning? Listen. It will listen. Job's been listening. And he's been thinking about what those words have been saying. And he's been looking around him. And now he's saying, wait just a minute. You're not saying anything that's true. All right, somebody read 17 through 21.
Yet how often is the lamp of the wicked snuffed out? How often does calamity come upon him? The fate God allots in his anger. How often are they like straw before the wind, like chaff swept away by a gale? It is said, God stores up a man's punishment for his sons. Let him repay the man himself, so that he will know it. Let his own eyes see his destruction. Let him drink of the wrath of the Almighty. For what does he care about the family he leaves behind when his allotted months come to an end?
Okay. If you're in a debate with someone, what is the most effective tool? To answer their statement or to question their statement? Question every time. You have to put them on the defense if you want to win the debate. Remember the old military statement, the best offense is a good defense? No, the best defense is a good offense. I had that backwards, I'm sorry. The best defense is a good offense. In other words, if you go at them, they have to defend themselves. But if you do nothing, if you just sit there in the foxhole, they'll surround you and you'll lose in the end. Okay? Same way in the debate. I used to love debate. I used to love to debate things. And I was pretty ornery about it. Poor Janice's sisters. Boy, I just gave them. I don't know why she married me. Her sister came out one day and she had a bottle of wine, and I said, I thought you were a Christian. You know, and I started. So she takes the wine away. Well, 3 weeks later, we're back together, and somebody hadn't been there for the first one. They brought in a bottle of wine. It's, oh, you brought a bottle of wine, great. And Cecil was sitting over here going, it's jumped all over me. I said, oh, you drink wine? Yeah. I said, yeah, the Bible's against drunkenness, but it's not against, you know. We got into this little debate. I won both debates. You know, just ornery. And my wife got mad. You know. But and if you think, remember when the Pharisees came to Jesus over and over and over again? What would he always do? He would question their question. Oh, is that really true? I can't think of a couple examples right now. But, you know, they'd come to, is it okay for a man to divorce his wife? We got him now. If he says this, we'll say that. If he says this, we'll say that. And what Jesus did? He said, well, what is written? He put it right back on them, and then they were on the defense. Okay? So Job goes through this, and all these are questions. Every one of these in question mark. And he says, well, are the rich dying younger than the poor? No, the poor are dying because they got a bad diet and they're sicker, and they don't have as good a shelter, and they don't have the nutrition. The poor always die younger than the rich do. The rich can have better medical service. The rich can have warmer homes and cooler homes in the summer. The rich don't die younger than the poor do. And he goes through there and he says, and what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And they're sitting there going, and that's what Jesus did. Every time the Pharisees would come and try to trap him, Jesus would say, well, let's look at this. And he'd start asking questions back to them. And they didn't have any answers. They're the ones that didn't want him to have any answers, but they didn't have any answers. And, you know, if you argue it, it goes on and on forever. But if you question it, then they have to admit the fact that they either don't know the answer or that the answer's wrong. What time is it? We got kids.
It's 25 after.
Huh?
25 after.
Okay, so we'll start with 22 next week. But Job comes back at him and he says, well, wait just a minute, let's take a look at this. And when this is over, they're going to be a lot more hostile than you. Oh, did you guys get the message that Sunday school was canceled?
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks. They changed it to November the 4th. It's going to be Pastor Appreciation Day. It's not going to be next week like they originally scheduled. They changed it to November the 4th. Or I got an email from Wilbur sent to you. And we're supposed to bring some kind of a dish for breakfast, and it's going to be from 8:30 to 9:30. Okay?